IVC, Dale Gatefold 33, back with another video. So yeah, happy new year to everyone. I'm shooting this on a wild and windy New Year's Day morning. And yeah, this is going to be a Vinyl Tag 2025 video. I'm sure there are plenty of these that are going to fly around, different variants. I've already seen some genre themed ones, but this is the one that Edwin at Pretty Green, a vinyl guy, put out in the beginning of December. So I thought I'd do my response to that and then maybe see what others there are, and maybe jump on a few others, depending on how mad it gets in terms of videos flying around. So yeah, Edwin set 20 questions. I've got them on my iPad in front of me, so I'll be referring to those. So let's get on with it. First up is your best purchase of 2024, new or old. So I'll go for old, and we're going right back to the beginning of 2024 when I picked up an original copy, 1970 issue of the Pretty Things Parachute album, probably my favourite Pretty Things album, on the wonderful Harvest label. So yeah, so that's probably certainly my favourite used purchase of the year, I think. So many. 50 years later, an album from 1974. So I did a series of an album for every year of my birth from 66 through to 2020 something or other when I want to do the video. And my choice, but I was only limited to one artist. You know, I can only show an artist once. And so I selected this artist for a different year, but this is probably my favourite album of 74. Not that I've given it too much thought. And so I'll go with Richard and Linda Thompson's I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight. So yeah, great album of folk rock. Question 3, an album that defines a genre. Again, I did a video on this genre or subgenre, if it even is a genre or a subgenre, and this is the album that I think defines it. So I'm talking about sophistipop, something that kind of, I don't know, was a subgenre, I think, in the early to mid 80s, and Sade's Diamond Life, I think, is the epitome of that sophistipop genre. So I'm picking that. Best band from your home country. Well, I'm from England, so that gives you a massive spectrum. So I'm gonna stick to the right answer. So my favourite band is Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd are from England, therefore I'll just show an album by Pink Floyd. Perhaps not an obvious album. The Music for Pleasure version of Relics rather than the Starline version. An artist you miss dearly. Yeah, this one instantly came to mind. Every time I see a documentary or something on this artist, I always think, what a waste. I'm talking about Amy Winehouse. Yeah, it's just a shame that no one could rescue her from her descent, unfortunately, and yeah, and just say lost far too young, and left us with this in my fantastic album, amongst other stuff. Best live album in your collection. I don't know what that is, but a live album that I played 2 days ago that was fantastic, sounded fantastic, is this Depeche Mode's 101 from 1989, I think it is. So this is a great album, come out just before Violator, so it hasn't got Violator and the sort of next 3 albums that are probably my favourite 3 albums, yeah, there or thereabouts, but great live album, and really enjoyed listening to that double album. Your partner just dumped you what album are you putting on? Hope it won't happen. But if it did, I put on probably just an album I can put on if ever I'm feeling a little bit down or a little bit, kind of somber, etc. An album that kind of is like a warm blanket to me is this album. So I would just cosset myself in the warm blanket of Richard Hawley's Cole's Corner, and and probably sob uncontrollably or whatever. Best sounding drums on an album. No idea. I'm not a musician of any, so I would probably get it horribly wrong. But I vaguely remember in a YouTube video, VC video, years and years ago when I was right at the beginning. So I started watching VC videos in 2012, so 13 years ago. And someone said that the drumming on this album was great. And they're a musician. So I'm going to go with Opeth Still Life and say this is because I know no better. Favorite artist who is a member of two or more bands. So a favorite artist who is a member of two or more bands. So he appeared certainly on this live album on guitar. So this is Susie and the Banshees Nocturne, but he's more famous and more well known for being a member of The Cure. So I'm talking about Robert Smith. So that's my pick for that one. Beatles or Stones? Yeah, why ask the question? The question gets asked a lot. Why ask the question? In terms of who, I mean, to be honest, I don't really listen to a lot of the classic stuff anymore. I'm exploring new stuff. I've got so much stuff that I'm discovering that I rarely have time to go back to the old stuff. So, but if I thinking back, I am more likely to play a Rolling Stones album probably than I am a Beatles album in the current sort of climate. That I feel that I'd be more likely to reach for one of those. But what I really think is, why not the Kinks? In terms of if you're going to pick one of the big artists from the 60s, I don't think there's enough love for the Kinks. You found a bag of weed. What are you going to listen to? So me and weed do not have a good relationship. So not something I'm likely to do. But an album that I've always never quite got into, that I do think that if you were stoned, you would get into it more easily, is the first Traffic album. I just think that, I just don't quite get this. Whether it's because it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of an initial album or not, but I think if I was stoned, I would have a better experience of Mr. Fantasy and finally get it, perhaps. Love the album after it. I think that's fantastic, but just can't quite get into that one. An album from the 80s you still listen to, so I probably listen to more, apart from current sort of 2020 stuff, I probably listen to more stuff from the 80s than I probably do the 70s or the 60s these days. Certainly I'm going back and finding stuff from the 80s that I didn't appreciate at the time when I was in my top of the pops, kind of was my only influence. So an album I've played recently, I went back into my spreadsheet and just sort of what's the most recent 80s album, or one of the most recent 80s albums that I've played. And so I picked this one, Pet Shop Boys, Introspective. So there you go. An album I still play because I've played loads and loads and loads of albums from the 80s. An artist whose political stance has soured you. So politics and music, I have been, and I'm trying to wean myself off being into politics. I've followed politics for several years, so trying to wean myself off it actually at the moment. yeah, so but not don't really relate music and politics, as in it wouldn't influence me particularly. I wouldn't stop listening to an artist if I still love their music because they had a different political stance to me. I don't think, but one who perhaps is Roger Daltrey, perhaps. Show a favourite record label. Again, I've done a show and tell video in the past on this record label. I was lucky enough last year, around the time of my birthday, that a big book was released, volume 1 in a series of books about this label. And this year, around the time of my birthday, the second volume was released, and so I pre-ordered it and bought it, and it is a weighty tome, this Island Book of Records, and this weighty tome covers only 1969 and 1970. So the next volume, which is going to be apparently even thicker than this, so this is thicker than the first version that covered sort of early period 58 through to 68. This covers, I think, where they kind of really took off, Island Records. If you look at the albums that are on the back here, all those albums in that 2-year period, and there's some fantastic albums. So yeah, by far my favourite record label is Island Records. Run of 3 great singles. So this band, I think, probably did 10 great singles in a row, if not more. But I'm picking 3. So Blondie, Sunday Girl. So this is, I think, the last single from Parallel Lines. Dreaming. So there's Dreaming, UK cover. There's a Japanese, UK Japanese. And then Union City Blue. All great singles. One of them is my favourite Blondie single, I think. I'm not saying which one. An RSD purchase that you actually consistently listen to. Yeah, so I dabble. I'm a bit hot and cold on RSD. I'll normally look at the list. I haven't got up and queued up for certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe. Certainly 2 or 3 years since I did that. I'll normally sweep up stuff when the shops put stuff online, if there's anything I particularly want, and if I miss out, I miss out. One record I did buy in a RSD that I definitely play because I think it's a fantastic album is this live album by Calexico called Spiritoso from 2013. This was a numbered copy on RSD. So yeah, I've got a copy of that. Really happy to get a copy of that, and definitely play. This is one of my favorite live albums. So that definitely gets a play. You can be reincarnated as any artist, dead or alive. Who's it going to be? So I thought of some different angles to this. One of which, the first one that sprung to mind was very inappropriate. So I'm not going to reveal that one. But I guess what I thought was you could be reincarnated as an artist, and then maybe with the benefit of history and hindsight that caused them to take a different path. And if that's the case, I would choose Otis Redding and just say, don't get on the plane, or wouldn't get on the plane, and therefore we may have got several or many more years of output from Otis. Best 3 lines in a song. Well, I'm going to do 4 because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. I'm not a lyrics person. I've said this before. But sometimes lyrics, particularly if they're completely like outlandish, and you think, you haven't just put those words with those words, have you? How could you? And sometimes, and there's very few songs that are in that category. And I've actually got a little playlist of them and they make me smile. Every time the lines come along, they make me smile. And one of them is from this album, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Abattoir Blues and the Lyre of Orpheus. And it's from the song Nature Boy. I've got the lyric sheet here. In the song, one of the verses, I was walking around the flower show like a leper coming down with some kind of nervous hysteria when I saw you standing there, green eyes, black hair, up against the pink and purple wisteria. Just the fact that he had the audacity to put wisteria and hysteria in a song to rhyme, just kind of like always sticks to me and always makes me smile when I listen to that song. Great song. An album you never tire of. This is another warm blanket album for me, but yeah, Dusty in Memphis, never tire of this album. If I'm at a loss of something to put on at any time of day or night, this album can always be reached for. And then finally, share your favorite VC channel. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not sure many people will do that. All the channels, and I'm subscribed to, are my favorite channels. That's why I'm subscribed to them. So I appreciate a breadth of and a number of VC channels, and thank you all for continuing to provide content that's interesting and leads me onto new discoveries. So yeah, that's my non-response to that question. Okay, so that's me done. I'm now going to off and look in my feed and find all the hundreds of other tag and different variants on tag videos and try and catch up on them, and maybe do a few more tags over the coming weeks, but not today. Okay, cheers VC, bye.